Hi everyone, it's Philip here, and reflecting a little bit on the government announcement yesterday that we get to go to level two from midnight Wednesday, and that means a bit of a release and relief for children back to school at least, and that's going to be a good thing. A bit more openness for businesses to get back and running, etc., etc. But very little relief for churches and public gatherings like ours. Apparently, you can go to a theatre, but to go to a worship centre for a group bigger than 10 is not allowed. So that sort of leaves us in an odd space, doesn't it? I mean, certainly for the next few weeks we won't be gathering like we would like to. And if there is some sort of staging of level two where perhaps it goes from 10 to 20 or 50 or whatever, at some point we may look to do perhaps two services where we would get you to book in and have two groups separated so that the numbers we can control a bit more easily and stay within government guidelines, but do something so that we can gather and begin a normal process of connection and life. So we're looking to do that, and that depends really on what level two for the next few weeks looks like. But at this stage, there is no Sunday services yet. That said, it does look like if what we're reading about the stipulations is what I think they are, something like a life group could go ahead, and whether that's a Sunday night or whether that's or Sunday morning, I should say, or any other time of the week, that would be really up to you. But it seems like home gatherings have a bit more freedom and flexibility, and the idea of merging bubbles, or even that fact, I think the bubble language can now pop. Thank goodness for that, and so maybe life groups could start again within that kind of keep it under 10, etc., etc. So I leave that with you, with the encouragement to do something like that. And of course, it doesn't have to be just once a week. You can have several of them if you wanted to. But reconnecting and getting back into human contact actually is probably much higher on the agenda for some of us than we might be aware of. That need for human connection is probably greater than we think. So do what you can, think it through as life group leaders. Maybe begin the conversation about what that would look like and how you'd manage it. And if your numbers are bigger than 10, whether you'd look to form two groups or how you'd handle that. But we leave that with you, with the encouragement to do something about it, because something is better than nothing, that's for sure. So that's where we sit right now. There may be something as far as some kind of Sunday service in the near future, but not this next week, and probably not the following week. So another 2 weeks without Sunday services. But we'll see how we go with the more. In another 2 weeks' time, we'll have another announcement from government about what level 2, 2.0, 0.13, or whatever the next one is going to look like. So that's where we're at. It reminds me of that old proverb, that hope deferred makes the heart sick. And I'd been talking to John Andrews yesterday. Thank you, by the way, John. He's been down at the church grounds cleaning things up. He was trimming hedges and things, and the place looks really tidy when actually had started to look a bit weedy. So really grateful for you, John. You're such a hard worker, and you do it with such an amazing attitude. So thank you very much. And to the person who did the lawns around the kindergarten, that's really cool. I was going to get Oliver down there. As many of you probably know, Oliver does the lawns at the moment. It was Tobias and it's now Oliver. And he was going to go down Saturday, but we got caught up with other things. He went down on Monday, and lo and behold, those lawns were done. So whoever did that, probably someone from the kindergarten committee, if I was to read that situation rightly. But thank you, that saved Oliver a little bit of a job. So, and if there's others down there, I think I saw Graham Rutherford as well. So some people who are just quietly going about doing some stuff to keep the place look nice. And of course, I know Donna has gone down there several times, just checking up on the property and making sure that it's being well cared for. So thank you for all those who've done that, those who I know and those who I haven't. It makes a huge difference. Where was I? I was waxing lyrical about something. Oh yes, hope deferred makes the heart sick. And I know, speaking to John, he was hopeful that we might be meeting on Sunday, and I might have even said something to the point of, I'm close to rebellion and let's just do it anyway, somewhat tongue-in-cheek, but also feeling the frustration and the aggravation of being forced not to, and probably getting to the point where it seems like it's hard to justify, in my mind, why they would linger on this, particularly, as I said, while you can have a theatre open and restaurants open, but you can't have a worship centre of worship open. And I suspect what that's about, really, when it comes down to it, is what the vision is of what the good life looks like in New Zealand. And it starts at the very fundamental of let's keep those who are alive as long as possible. So that's the fundamental baseline on which the whole lockdown was founded. We have to save life, preserve life, and keep shelf life going as long as possible. And so we were all made to feel afraid of anyone dying or of death entirely. We were made to feel afraid and mortal, and to, out of that fear of our mortality and the mortality of the ones we love, to stay in our homes and to be good boys and girls. And now, really, the next level and the tension that's been played out in Parliament has been the one between life and livelihood. And Simon Bridges particularly has been playing particularly the livelihood one. What's the point if we're living forever and yet no one has any money because the economy's died? So the tension has been between keeping people safe, and then actually making sure they have a home to live in and some food on the table because they can still afford it. And of course, the bigger picture is making sure that the economy supports a government that can help those who are in need. So there's the whole picture of livelihood is in stake here. And I think that's what we're talking about when we look at things like, well, why opening up schools? Why opening up theatres? Why are we opening up restaurants and malls, but we're not opening up centres of worship? Well, it seems to me the answer is fairly obvious. Centres of worship are not economic factors. They don't make money for the government. If anything, they take money away because people are building buildings that the government doesn't own, giving money and time not into economic ventures, but really voluntary things and things that have very little to do with the overall agenda of the government, which is, as we know, it's really about building an economic machine that makes sure that the livelihood of its members and its citizens is sustained. So with the fundamental baseline of life itself being pretty well secured now, we're now hot on the trail of making sure we can secure livelihood. Now, I'm not against any of this, right? This is not evil in itself. I fully support, and I know I probably don't say enough about the good work that our business owners do, and the good work of being a good and productive citizen of a place like New Zealand, or of any place really. If we didn't have businesses creating jobs and giving us products that we do need, I mean, I'm so grateful that someone built this house for us. We paid them to do it, but of course we have trained carpenters and we have people who fabricate things. We have cars. We have. I'm looking at a camera in a laptop so that I can speak to you, even though I am not going to see you still for a few weeks. These incredible things, a whole world of things built by people who are really clever, inventive, and have made our lives, enriched our lives in many ways. And I think of there's a number of our members who are heavily involved in their own businesses and do so to the glory of God. I know that, do so with a real generous heart and are committed to building a business, not just for their own empire, not just kingdom building of their own kingdom, but also very aware of the lives they affect, the employees they employ, and the culture of that place, and being good employers and good witnesses to God. So I'm very aware of that. I think, though, what we're facing and what we will always face in our culture, in our country, is very much of a closed system, if you like, where the only good hope we can hope for exists within the system we've created. Now, that system is the world that we know. It's the one that we can touch and we can build and we can affect. It's the world around something like an economy. So the economy is the engine inside this world. It's a world mastered by people like scientists and engineers, people who get to understand how the world and the system works. And we are pinning our hopes on scientists who will find a cure, or at least some kind of jab that will secure us against COVID-19 and other viruses like it, as they do with the flu, as they have done with the measles, as they have done with all sorts of different diseases that have plagued humanity down the years. Many of these things have been put into the history books because of our scientific breakthroughs. So in a sense then, is that we live in a world, and we live and breathe in this kind of culture that places almost, if not almost all, pretty much all of its hope in finding answers to the good life within the world that we know and as we know it. Now that's called the immanent world. It's the world immanently around us. The contrast to that, or another vision, is the world of transcendence, right? So this is going to move us toward thinking about Revelation and what I've been reflecting on out of Revelation 11 particularly, and the two witnesses who are sent. And this comes out of the scroll that we've been longing to read, that John has finally been handed. He has consumed it, and he's beginning to now to witness to what is on that scroll. And I spoke last time about the measuring of the temple and leaving the outer court, and how that talks about the church, you and I, how we are in this world protected by God, and yet still very vulnerable and butted up right against the world that we live in. It makes us, it's a difficult place to live. It's a contested space, and it's hard for us to find our identity and maintain our identity while we're in this contested space, hard up against very difficult conditions. And one of those conditions that, for us particularly, not thinking about John's audience, is the fact that our world doesn't have any gods in it at all. There are no powers higher than natural laws. There are no forces beyond gravity, if you like, that pull and push on our lives. And yet the world that Revelation speaks of, and that our Christian heart yearns toward, is one of transcendence. And transcendence is a bit of a potent horror, because what it's essentially saying is, as much as we think we know how this thing works and how the world is, as much as we think we know we can control events and can manipulate life in the world around us, there is something beyond all of this that we cannot grasp. It is a horizon we cannot see beyond. It is a space and a place that we might feel and maybe intuit is real, but we cannot get there on our own. We're not in control of it. It impacts on us in ways that we that doesn't mean that we can then look back and see how that worked, in the same way that we feel the impact of gravity and have worked out how that works. Although we haven't actually worked out how gravity works, we just know that it does work. Transcendence is the thing that hits us, impacts our lives, and yet we can't look back and see how or where that came from. Other than putting words to it like, that was God. The God stories are all about that. They're trying to encourage us to think about the transcendent power that affects our lives, that is part and parcel of our lives, woven into our life, but can't be just reduced to the life as we know it, or to natural laws or anything like that. There's a person and a personality behind these forces, behind this transcendent work. Someone who, like a master chess player, is able to move the chessboard, and while the natural world or the immanent world would be trying to work out what kind of wood the chess pieces are made of and what kind of ink is used to colour the chessboard, and therefore say we know what chess is about. The transcendent view is to say, yes, we might know all of those things about the chessboard, but we do not know what the next move will be, because we do not know what the chess player is going to do. So that's the transcendent world, and it doesn't have a place in our world. It doesn't have our world cannot see beyond that horizon, and in fact, has said there is no horizon that doesn't exist. All that there is all that you can see, touch, measure, etc. Question I guess I want to leave with you here, and I don't want to go much further than this, and I'll pick the same thread up for the next video, is to ask the question, how would you witness to the world that there is a transcendence? How would you encourage your neighbours, your friends, maybe family who do not believe? How would you encourage them to see and to believe and to trust that there is something beyond this world, something bigger than this world, something that actually offers much bigger hope than this world alone can offer? How would you go about doing that? What tools would you reach for? What would you expect to be able to do? I'd love to hear your comments, and you may prefer to email them directly to me or to the admin at chapelhill.org.nz. You may not like commenting on YouTube. I've noticed that some will and do, but most don't, and I understand there might be a nervousness there, and that's fine. But if you've got some questions or some ways of saying, here's what I've done in the past to try and help someone who really didn't know how to believe in something beyond what they could touch and feel and what they've been told alone could be reliable, the kind of sciences that we expect that our world really trusts these days, either the power of the economy to keep a nation going, those kinds of things. What would you do? And how has it been convincing for you that there really is a God and that things aren't just circumstance, that the effects of your life, the things that have happened to you that don't seem to be making that much sense, that feel like they're a little more personal than the impersonal clockwork machinery type machine of the world that we've been kind of convinced is the only world. So I'll leave that with you. Give that some thought. Reflect on that as well. It's for your own journey. What makes you think there really is a God? Because it might have been costly for you to trust that God, and it might be costly for you right now to trust that God. And then I'll pick that up for the next video in the way that these two witnesses, the way they function in the story and what they're all about, I'll pick up on that. But because it really does talk about the particularly that transcendent part, the part of trusting God to the end. All right. God bless. Hope to see you soon. A few weeks maybe. Hold on there, and maybe get together in small groups and do what you can to build community again. Real community, not this kind of false electronic one. God bless. Hope to see you soon. Cheers.